Lisa,
Yes, baby girl.
when I grow up, I want to be a woman to society.
Then so shall you be. Hi, this is Lisa Landry. Welcome back to Womanist to Society. I'm joined today by Connie Valentine. Welcome to the podcast, Connie.
Thank you for having me, Lisa.
We had Catherine on recently, Catherine Campbell, who's affiliated with your organization, California Protective Parents, and I was hoping that you could shed a little bit more light on your organization, your foundation. You started it, right?
Yes, I'm the co-founder with Karen Anderson, who's another protective mother. In 1999, we started California Protective Parents Association. The reason that we did was basically around one woman's case in Sacramento, a woman named Josie Cohen, who became a friend of ours. Her case was so egregious and so well documented of the sexual abuse of her child. There were 5 or 6 substantiated CPS reports. The child revealed he called the police himself.
Oh my
911
gosh.
call. Yet the judge kept putting him back with his abuser. And we realized that there was something really drastically wrong going on. Each of us had our own cases, but mine was very benign, comparatively speaking. Karen's was quite extraordinary also. But it was really around that one case that we rallied and started this organization.
And did that kid ever get taken away from that abuser?
No.
So that child, even though they had CPS reports saying that this kid was being harmed, was left in a home with somebody who was harming him?
Raping him.
And how is that possible?
Well, the system does not work very well. And one of the problems is that there are mental health professionals that get involved who are paid enormous sums of money, usually by the more resourced parent. The person who has the most money hires this mental health professional to determine whether the child is telling the truth or not. Mental health professionals are not skilled in trying to decide who's telling the truth. They're skilled in trying to get people to examine their inner selves. But the judges buy whatever they have to sell. And they sell it for up to, in some counties, $60,000 or more per evaluation.
60 grand?
Yes.
For one evaluation?
Right. Yes.
That's an exorbitant amount of money for somebody who isn't really qualified in the first place.
It's a completely uncontrolled cottage industry, some people call it. They're rapacious mental health professionals that do this.
What's rapacious? Because I'm Southern. I don't know.
Oh, you're Southern. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's like
I'm college educated now, Connie, but I don't know that big word.
They get every bit of your money that they possibly can.
Oh, they're greedy.
They're greedy and they're cruel. They often say in their report, well, obviously they say that the person who's paying them needs to have the child because that's the person that's paying them. But at the same time, they'll say that the child needs they need another evaluation down the line. So then they get to collect another $60,000 because the judge also buys that.
Oh my gosh. And okay, these people who are they're social workers.
No,
right?
These are
who
PhD
these
psychologists.
Okay, these PhD psychologists.
Right.
Are they trained with children, or I mean, is that their focus of their PhD work is with children who've been sexually abused?
Oh no, they're whatever they get their PhD in pretty much qualifies. It's a very generic training, and then in California. They're supposed to get special training in child sex abuse, for example. The trainings turned out to be very problematic because the trainers were formerly people who advertised themselves, many of them advertised themselves as parental alienation specialists. Then they retooled their resume, got the 40 hours of training, and said that they were now experts in child custody.
The 40 hours of instruction, does that include being around children, or is that just an instructor telling them information and they don't actually have field work?
It's just an instructor telling them information.
So they're just getting book taught.
Right.
What is parental alienation?
that is a theory. There was a man named Richard Gardner who developed a theory that when a child reports abuse, particularly sexual abuse, then that child is, then the other parent who's trying to protect the child is only trying to alienate the child from the parent that is allegedly harming the child. It's very complicated and twisted. But really, it boils down to, there's one group of people saying that the children are being abused. There's another group of people saying, no, it's the safe parent making it up and trying to keep the child away from the
Oh, like
other
what
parent.
happened to Mia Farrow?
Exactly.
Okay, so everybody thought she was lying and she was making this up, and that
Making it up.
Woody Allen wasn't diddling the kid.
Right.
But
And
the
then he
kid
married
was
her.
being diddled. Right. Well, that was another kid he was diddling.
Oh, right.
Right. So, wow. So Richard Gardner, whatever happened to him, because Catherine Campbell mentioned on a previous podcast that guy's work was debunked.
It was totally debunked. He was a psychiatrist who kind of made it up. He was also a person who thought that pedophilia was perfectly okay.
Are you kidding me?
No, I
Where
wish I were.
where was this guy?
He was back in New York at Columbia.
Oh, it was an Ivy Leaguer.
Oh, well, yeah, sort of.
Okay.
And he managed to sway the minds of the judges to believe this really hocus pocus stuff. But eventually he ended up killing himself by stabbing himself in the chest multiple times.
Wait, he did what to himself?
He stabbed himself in the chest multiple times
So,
with a knife.
okay. So somebody who committed suicide put in place a system that harmed kids
Yes.
and devalued parents who were advocating for their safety, and this man's work is still being used in court?
Absolutely. They've dropped the term syndrome now. They just say alienation. But it still holds sway. And anytime a child reports abuse, then the opposite side says, oh, the child is being alienated. So it's sort of a war between abuse and alienation.
Well, that sounds just stupid.
It's totally stupid.
Well, how is this still going on?
Because there are an awful lot of pedophiles who are pushing it.
But wouldn't you think that there are systems in place to protect the kids, even though there's these pedophiles? I mean, everybody hates pedophiles. Why would anybody help a pedophile?
Well, if you pretend that the child is lying, then the pedophile is a perfectly fine, upstanding person that's being falsely accused.
Oh, so he needs to be protected,
He
or
needs
she
to
needs to be protected.
The person, yes, the person who is the fine, upstanding citizen who's being falsely accused needs to be protected and needs to be given the child so that the other parent will stop making these allegations. It's a perfect system to protect pedophiles.
That's sickening.
It's totally sickening. And children are being harmed every single day. In fact, someone worked out the numbers on the 58,000 children per year that are placed with their perpetrators. It comes out to about 160 kids a day are being taken from their safe parent, given to their dangerous parent, all because of this quack doctor that promoted
That
this.
killed himself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
very gory.
So he was very healthy. He was a healthy, stable individual.
Who thought pedophilia was just fine.
Columbia still thinks that this guy was somebody special.
No, they've pretty much backed away from him and said he wasn't a tenured professor. He was just teaching a class there. They've kind of backtracked on Dr. Gardner.
And so wouldn't you think that anybody in court who's being accused of alienation, is that what it is? Like, okay, say that a protective parent is saying, no, I'm not alienating my ex-spouse from the child because I'm being horrible. There's abuse going on. Wouldn't you think that that parent could just tell the court, hey, you're using something that's debunked 10 years prior, that shouldn't stand up in court, right?
You'd think. And some of the parents do say that. If they know it, if they know the history of it.
Well, wouldn't the lawyers know that? To say, my client's not making this up?
Most of the protective parents don't have lawyers, while the other parent does have a lawyer. That was what our research showed.
Why wouldn't they just go get a lawyer?
Because they don't have any money.
Well, why wouldn't you just call a public defender or a child advocate to come help you?
There aren't any. And none of them will take these cases because they go on for the whole time of the child's childhood. So it would be far too costly to do that.
Well, couldn't you just go into court one time? and like pay an attorney to be like, yo, this is some truth to the court?
The problem is that if the other person has an attorney who's very clever, they will then postpone the court case so that they could then make sure that the protective parent doesn't have any money.
Oh, they just
sort of stretch
bleed
it
that
out.
person dry
They
of
bleed
their
it dry.
finances to keep their child safe.
It's called a scorched earth policy. In the research that we did, 27% of the protective parents, all mothers, ended up bankrupting themselves.
Well, it just seems impossible that there's no one you can turn to in a situation like that. I mean, we have all these agencies that help kids.
That's what we thought also. And we thought when we first started California Protective Parents Association, we could simply go to the legislature, we could go to the governor, we could go to the judiciary and say there's this big problem.
Mm-hmm.
We need it fixed.
Which judiciary?
That's
Judiciary.
all the judges. And it's a kind of a hierarchy. They're top judges, and then they're the family law judges who are not very well regarded, and it's not a very highly placed. But most judges want to be criminal court judges.
Oh.
But they don't like being family court judges because they consider two parents just squabbling.
But somebody saying my child being abused, that's not squabbling to me. I mean,
well, the judge hears it all the time, and the judge thinks to himself, she's just trying to get a leg up in court by accusing her husband of harming the child.
Why would somebody do that? I mean, if you're going bankrupt trying to say my kid's being harmed, why would you keep saying that? That just doesn't make any sense.
Well, the interesting thing that you asked that question is that what we've noticed is that there are certain hot spots up and down California.
Uh-huh.
Certain counties, the judges are just fine. They protect the child. Certain judges make sure that the abuser is on supervised visits, or the child can see them under supervision. They don't switch custody. They're very good judges.
Mm-hmm.
In other counties, there's this little clique of people. The judge, the attorney for the abuser, the mental health professionals I was telling you about, and sometimes they're attorneys for the child. Sometimes.
What's an attorney for the child?
This is an attorney. Everybody thought it was a great idea that you'd have an attorney appointed for the child to protect the child's interests.
That makes sense.
It does, except who pays that attorney? Well, often the person with the most money pays that attorney, and they get what they pay for, which is custody of their child.
But wouldn't you think that both parents have to pay, like split the bill? That way it's fair?
Well, they try to do that, but often the protective parent has been a battered person and has fled with their child to protect their child, and they flee to a shelter or to a friend's house or something, and they have zero money because the batterer shuts down their bank account, which leaves them with no money for an attorney, no money to live.
Wow.
Some of them end up homeless. Many end up bankrupt. In the survey project that we did of 399 protective parents, many of the parents said, I'm not bankrupt yet, but I'm going to be soon.
Right.
So it's way over this 27%. 98% of the cases that we saw, the battering parent, most of them were batterers, had not one but two attorneys, and the protective parent had zero attorneys, which means when you're going before a judge, the judge almost always goes with the person who has the attorney.
Right, because those attorneys, I'm sure, give money towards their campaigns if they run or...
One case, actually this was in Chicago, not in California, but in one case, the father in that case would go up to the bench before the hearing, hand the judge a big envelope stuffed with money, and say, this is for your campaign fund, Your Honor. And then they would go back and litigate the case.
You're kidding me.
You're
kidding me. Why don't these parents... Okay, look, I know this is happening to fathers as well. Not in the same numbers, you know. Why wouldn't the mothers who are being affected this way call NOW, National Organization of Women, or call Gloria Allred, or just any women's groups? Don't you think they would come and help?
Well, every mother I have ever come upon, and some of the fathers, have done exactly that. Gloria Allred must get one call every hour from protective parents. Oprah must get one call every hour from protective parents. National Organization for Women, we've briefed them over and over and over again. they say that's not our focus.
How can that not be your focus?
I don't know.
If these are women and children being harmed, how is that not everybody's focus? Because these kids, I would reckon a lot of them are boys. So they're going to grow up to be men. So how can this just be a women's issue?
I wish I had an answer, except it seems like we had a wonderful, wonderful person who was the head of NOW, Helen Greco, years ago. She was fabulous. She jumped right on this. She said, we are taking this forward. This will be our national organization, California National Organization for Women's most important project. And within 3 years, I think, she was bounced out of her leadership role. And the person that took her place did not want anything to do with the protective parent movement.
You've got to be kidding me.
I wish I could. I can't kid about that.
That doesn't make any sense, though.
No.
And then the new person who took over just wouldn't help you make any progress?
No.
And this is California.
Yeah.
We're all here. The progressives, right? I mean,
one would think. And strangely, and this, I'm a card-carrying Democrat.
Mm-hmm. I am too. I'm a little PO'd at our party right now, but I'm a Democrat.
We did get it together a little bit better.
Well, yeah.
But what we found in California is that the Republicans have been wonderful on this issue.
Yeah.
And many of the Democrats, too. Mm-hmm. But the Republican law and order type people were pretty horrified by it.
Why?
Because there's these laws that are not being followed, such as there's a law against raping a child.
Well, that makes sense.
And so when the Republicans found out about it, they didn't like the law and order problems. So they've helped us quite a bit. We've been very pleased.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's you know what I do want to say for people listening, because I am a Democrat, but pretty much my whole family and a lot of people I love and a lot of my fans are Republican. And this needs to be a bipartisan issue.
Absolutely.
One would think, because these kids are not affiliated blue, red, or independent, or libertarian, or any other party affiliation. These are just kids, you know? And if we have laws on the books, one would think everybody would just come together. And that does make me feel good to know that the Republicans are moving on this issue.
They've been wonderful, as have many Democrats.
Yeah.
So it is utterly bipartisan. We've passed some excellent laws in California. We spent 10 years working on passing good laws.
Yeah.
The opposition would come along and sort of gut the laws.
What is opposition? That's what I don't understand. What is opposition to keeping children from being raped?
There was a book written in 1991 by a man named Dick Hart. It was elegantly named Screw the Bitch. I hope that's...
Well, his name's Dick. What do you expect, Connie? I mean, it's right there. His mama warned the village, girl.
They tried.
They tried.
But then he got this last name Hart.
Dick Hart.
Dick
That
Hart.
should tell you something, too.
I think so. That book laid out, it was kind of like a manifesto of what they call father's rights, but that's not truly father's rights. It's really batterers and molesters' rights.
Yeah.
And there are a certain number of people who are batterers, like 1 in 3 women are battered, right? 1 in 3 women are sexually abused
Well,
as
I think the
children.
numbers are higher, actually.
Well, this is the conservative.
Yes.
We'll go Republican on this. Conservative. So a third of us, women, have been either battered or raped or both.
Right.
Battered as adults, raped as children. Probably the crossover is pretty close.
Right.
There are those people out there battering and molesting, and they don't want to be held accountable for it. So they're busy trying to shut the children up, just like they tried to shut the adult women who said that they're being raped, said that they were being battered.
Bill Cosby put a pill in my drink. No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Yeah.
And now it's proved.
Right.
So we've got a problem here.
So we got pedophiles protecting other pedophiles, rapists protecting other rapists, and that's no Republican Democrat issue. That's just what's happening. That's just
Dennis Hastert.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Yep.
Well, I don't think a lot of people do know though about Dennis Hastert.
Well, I wish I knew all the story. But he was accused of child molestation, and he had to resign from being the Speaker of the House.
Oh, that's what I remember. Yeah.
Yeah. And there, so it goes right to the top.
So the Speaker of the House was, I think he went to jail for that.
I think he did.
Yeah. So one would think that if that kind of progress was made, we are moving toward, there is no opposition to keeping kids safe.
One would think. And the good thing is, that in California, just yesterday, I think, there were headlines about over 200 people were arrested down in LA for child sex abuse.
Yeah.
There was a big sting operation.
There seems to be a lot of that going on recently.
Yeah, and much as I have difficulty with not my president,
He's made that an issue, though.
he's made that an issue.
Yeah.
So this is a really good thing, and I'm pleased as punch that that's going on.
I'm excited. I'm a fan of Trey Gowdy, actually. I like what he's doing.
They are doing good things about this particular issue.
Right.
So this is a wonderful thing that's happening. What I think is going to happen eventually is, remember I was saying there were hot spots up and down California?
I'm sorry I interrupted you.
There are good, well, no, we went off on a really good track there. But the good thing about the hot spots is that makes us know that there's a ring operating.
You got dirty birds circulating in cages.
Dirty birds.
Yep.
They're dirty therapists, dirty judges, dirty attorneys that are all working together.
Mm-hmm.
And what we saw with the case that started our organization was they all worked in harmony with each other. Now, some people might use the word collusion. I like to use the term they're all in the same club. We don't quite know what club it is.
Can we say collusion? Because I like that word.
Well, it's a good word.
Okay.
It's a good word. They all speak together. In Marin County, for example, which is right up here in Northern California, just right across the bridge, in the 90s, they would all, the family law judges and the head of the family law judges and all the attorneys would get together on weekends at the chief judge's house. He would wander around in his black robe with nothing on underneath.
Are you for real?
I wish I could lie about something like that. I can't make these things up. I am not that smart.
So the judge is having everybody over for like a house party, wander around naked under his robe.
Right. They're all having a lot of fun, and who knows what kind of fun. They call themselves the Fleas, the Family Law Elite Attorneys. And the Fleas, I mean, if you're palling around with a judge and it's your client, then he's going to go with his pal.
Right.
So that was as blatant as anything I've ever seen.
Well, why don't you call the DOJ?
We've called the DOJ. We've picketed in front of the DOJ. We have worked in every single level of government. And they all look at us cross-eyed. Nothing happens. Or they have a little grant money that goes for, now, I like the Office of Violence Against Women a lot.
Okay.
The DOJ. I really think they're good people. I've met with them a lot of times. They can only do so much. They can give little grants so that four different counties would improve their family law system.
Okay.
Now, whether that turned out well or not, I don't know, but that's about all they can do. That's what their job is.
But don't they investigate these kind of situations?
There isn't anybody that we've come upon that can investigate them, or will. Here's the... This could get really boring.
No, I'm fascinated. I can't believe how messed up all this is.
It's totally messed up. For example, judges are state-paid employees. They are state-level judges.
Okay.
In the county, we have county grand juries. Now, there are 58 counties in this state. The judges, there are like 1,800 of them, and maybe 250 or 300 belong to family court. A grand jury ought to be investigating this, but they only investigate county level. We don't have a state-level grand jury. They would be investigating, but we don't have one.
Well, why not?
Well, because nobody wants one.
Why not?
I don't know.
Well, it seems like the people would want that. I mean, everybody wants law and order. You don't have to be a Democrat or a Republican just to want to know that you're safe in your own damn country.
Right. So we talked to the Judicial Council. We talked to the Attorney General. We said, we need a state level one of these. And they just said, no, that's too complicated.
How can it be too complicated to make sure that everything's judicious? I guess they don't want to.
They don't want to.
Yeah.
It costs money. It might open up doors they don't want to open up.
Lawsuits from previous.
Could be. This issue is bigger than the pedophile priest issue. And finally, thanks basically to Kathleen Russell from Centers for Judicial Excellence, we're starting to get good investigative journalists involved.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that. Like, I spoke to Catherine Campbell, and I asked her, like, why don't y'all just call the news anchor, and just be like, this is what's happening, because one would think they would send somebody to interview.
Well, and sometimes they do. And they sent a woman named Kristen Lombardi out from the Boston Phoenix, which was the Boston paper that broke the pedophile priest story.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first.
Oh, Spotlight?
It was before Spotlight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Spotlight was the Boston
Globe. Mm-hmm.
This was the Boston Phoenix, which is a smaller newspaper. So her eyes lit up. She did a big article on it. It was fabulous. It was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Her paper got sued, and she ended up in the street.
Oh, my gosh.
She had to get a job in another place.
Why'd she get sued if she was just reporting stuff that she had?
They just sued. Because this is a group of very well organized batterer and molester rights groups. And they have lots of money, and they just sue anybody that exposes it.
Then how do you get any justice?
You don't.
So what happens to these parents and these children?
The children grow up, and they become the next generation of either messed up drug abusers or furiously angry people who act out.
So we're getting more rapists
and
batterers and
shooters.
That's interesting, because I mentioned that when I was speaking with Ms. Campbell. Like, I'm of the mindset when I watch the news and I see these young people who take a gun to school, I just wonder, like, where did that rage come from that you are acting out on people you think have better lives than you do, who are your age, or teachers and cops are the ones who seem to get shot. And I'm not saying I condone that. Obviously, it's horrific to watch that kind of violence. But I always think, why? Like, why is this happening? Instead of just, happened. These are kids who haven't been heard. And they seem to be lashing out at the people that should be listening.
That's a really good observation.
Well, I smoke a lot of pot.
I
try to figure things out.
Okay, it comes to you. Well, the Kathleen Russell that I was talking about before at Center for Judicial Excellence, they've done a study and found in the last, I think it's 9 years, there were almost 600 deaths, custody deaths, in which the father generally was the killer, who've just been killing the children that they get custody of. If there's any problem going on, like the mother, for example, goes to court to try to get custody, sometimes the man just kills the child. We couldn't even interest the Attorney General when her assistant Attorney General's child was murdered.
Are you kidding me?
They didn't.
The assistant DA's child was
Attorney
murdered.
General, state Attorney General, not the local DA.
No.
The state Attorney General.
That's a big gun.
Big.
So the
top of the heap.
assistant...
Pamela Harris, who's now our senator.
Right.
She wasn't the Attorney General. Oh, yes, she was. Attorney General at the time.
When this happened, she was the AG?
Yeah.
And one of her people in her office had their child killed?
Shot in El Dorado County. Yeah.
And, okay, let me play devil's advocate. Was it actually proved that the dad did this? Like, was he arrested for killing the child?
He couldn't be. He was dead. He shot himself also. First he shot the child, and then he shot himself.
Okay. Did this come out of nowhere, though? Like, it was just a one day, daddy bugged out? Or were there things that were related to the family court that this person murderer, was harming the kid?
Nobody knows about what the previous stuff was, but he took the child up to Oregon against the court order.
Oh, so he was in contempt.
And he was in contempt. And the attorney went, she had an attorney. The attorney went to the judge, and the judge was the same judge that put the little boy that I was telling you about, his case started our organization. Same judge said, no, we're not going to issue a warrant, to go and find him. He'll be back.
So wait, this is the same judge who's been allowing victims to go back to the person hurting them for years. Right. And now so this same judge allowed this guy to take the child to Oregon.
Against court order.
Against court order. So he knows he's in contempt.
Right.
And did nothing about it.
Right.
And ultimately this child was killed.
Right.
and this abuser killed himself.
Right. As often happens.
And this person, the mother who was left with all this grief, she actually works in the Attorney General's office and couldn't help save her own child.
No.
That's some sick stuff, Connie Valentine.
It is heartbreaking and perverted and troubling and disturbed, and it just enrages me.
Yeah.
It should not be happening.
Wow. Do you think it's that prevalent? You mentioned before you think this is going on.
Well, the Leadership Council back in the East Coast put together, not exactly a study, but an analysis of how many, they were trying to figure out how many kids this happens to.
Yeah.
So they took the number of domestic violence victims, because our research shows about 80% of the protective parents are domestic violence victims. So they took the domestic violence victims in the whole U.S., and they analyzed how many children they might have on average and how many went through a divorce and blah, blah, blah. Came out with a very well-reasoned, very conservative figure of 58,000 children per year are placed with their identified abusers. So that was shocking.
Right.
And if you transfer that over to California, that's about 6,000 kids per year in California placed with their abusers every year. We figured, of course, during our marches in Washington that it was about 1 million children who had been needlessly taken from their safe parents in the 20 years that we've been working on this. 1 million kids.
It's 1 million kids.
That's 1 million kids. That's a big city.
That's 1 million lives.
That's 1 million lives.
That's 1 million lives before you consider the parent that is suffering through this and their family.
Right.
And their friends.
It has reverberations across society.
This is millions of people.
This
So
is millions of people.
So how do you get the word out to adults in communities who can get involved? If an attorney general can't even help her own child, or assistant attorney general can't even save her own child, how does anybody really get involved?
That's what's scary about it. We've tried our best to educate communities. At least in my community, we had a whole series of conferences every year. And that educated a certain number of people, but people who didn't want to hear about it didn't listen.
Yeah.
So then, one of the reasons Catherine has come on board for California Protective Parents Association is that she has tremendous media skills.
Mm-hmm.
We also have worked with Center for Judicial Excellence, who Kathleen has tremendous media skills. Because we all agree that we have to get the media involved before anything's going to shift.
Well, yeah, because if people don't know that there's an issue, nobody can work to solve it.
Exactly.
And everybody has this push right now towards helping.
Right. So the more we get it out there, the better. The more we understand how the issues work, and they're complicated.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not complicated.
I mean, it's not that complicated. You got pedophiles helping each other. You got rapists helping each other. It sounds to me like patriarchy actually is the issue.
That's a
at
big
play here.
underlying piece.
It's like daddy gets to do whatever the hell daddy wants to do, and if daddy's going to get caught, one of daddy's friends is going to just, pat him on the back and say, hey, don't get caught,
Yes, and it was helped enormously 20 years ago or so with, 20 years ago exactly, with the change in the welfare federal regulations.
Oh, the workfare, isn't that what they were calling it?
Well, it used to be AFDC, and then it turned into Temporary Assistance to Needy Families in 1997. Well, what happened there was they had a little grant carve-out that was for healthy marriage and responsible fatherhood, put through by someone who was a father's rights person.
Okay.
And that, and when I say father's rights, I'm not talking about regular, normal, good fathers. I'm talking about batterers and molesters.
And there is a difference.
There's a huge difference.
There's a lot of,
There are a lot of great
There are
dads.
a lot of great dads. There are a lot of great dads, I'm sure, out there who know that their ex-spouse, their ex-wife has shacked up with a pedophile.
And they're trying to protect
trying to protect their kid and probably can't get any help.
They're having as much trouble.
Yeah.
They're also, we've worked with a number of fathers. Well, the statistics are we've received about 5,000 calls from protective parents.
Okay.
About 10 of them were for men.
Okay.
So
they're out there.
They're out there.
They're out
but
there.
It's a handful.
But the other reality is that book that you mentioned, Screw the Bitch.
Screw the Bitch.
And some of these other fathers' rights organizations are actually not helping. Is that what you're saying? They're not helping?
They are the opposition.
Okay.
The ones who are saying, and in fact, one of the men came up to me at a conference and said, children need their fathers whether they rape them or beat them or not.
You're kidding me. You're kidding me.
You keep saying that. How can
No,
I
because
kid
it just sounds stupid.
And
that doesn't make any sense. That is a damaged individual who thinks that a child needs to be around somebody raping them.
Exactly. And those are the people that comprise the groups. They put on a glossy front, more and more so. They're getting much more clever about it. But that's at heart, that's what they believe. That children need their fathers, whether they rape them or batter them or not.
Well, it sounds like NAMBLA to me.
It is.
Or, it's the same kind of like pedophile's okay because, you know, it's been going on since the Greeks,
That's
or
right.
before then.
That's right. And that's what's a resurgence of, I mean, we're someone said we've gone 180 years backwards. I think we've gone like caveman days backwards. Because now as you said, the patriarchy, the brutal men are rising up to say, I own the children. I can't own the women.
But that's always been like that. I mean, men have always, not men. I don't want to bash men, but patriarchy.
People who think they own women and children.
Right. And in my mind, a lot of men are not like that. The average man does not think that's my property. However, it seems like if you are dealing with someone that abusive, who does see you as an extension of what he owns, and your children are only his, you're not dealing with the average upright man. You're dealing with a gaslighter and an abuser.
Yes.
So there is a distinction.
Huge distinction.
Huge.
I mean, you're probably dealing with somebody who's a sociopath.
Yeah.
Which means he has no conscience.
Right.
Yeah, or she.
Or she. There's
and
some of
there
them.
certainly are.
Yeah.
Some women who have no conscience. Most of the people that we see are women who are trying to protect their children.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually often use the word she just because it's been so overwhelming. When we first started out, we thought it was going to be 50-50.
Yeah.
But it turned out it was, about 1,000 to 1.
Right. Well, maybe some of these dads are calling the organizations that are for them, not knowing that some of these people in charge of those organizations are actually twisted enough to say that a child needs to be with his father even if daddy's sticking it to him.
Right.
Or her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
well,
that's just gruesome.
It's gruesome. It's gruesome. So the solutions, we've been floundering for solutions because we thought at first if we just alerted everybody, they'd fix it.
Right.
Well, it got worse.
What do you mean it got worse?
It got worse because we would get good laws in place and they would come and undermine them with another law, which we didn't even know about. It was a sneak attack. So we realized that there's a very focused group of people trying to do this, and it's quite large, and it has quite a lot of money. And they have all the laws. There's a fatherhood.gov. There's not a motherhood.gov. The federal government is paying money to responsible fatherhood, not to responsible parents. So they're paying money in grants to men, not to women.
To be fathers?
To be responsible fathers.
Well, what's the distinction though? Like, how do you get this grant money if you're?
Well, if you happen to be a felon in prison,
Mm-hmm.
a gangbanger, a drug lord, a murderer, a rapist, whoever, the fatherhood funding, a special amount, $800,000 at one point, goes to people going into the prison to explain to the fathers, felonious fathers, that they need to be good fathers when they come out.
Right.
And when they come out, they should get back in touch with their children.
Which makes sense.
Well, unless you think about it a little bit more, because what are the children going to learn? How to be a good drug lord, how to be a good felon, how to be a good person, because they're not rehabilitated when they come out. So it's almost like the government is trying to get the kids to help tame these friends.
Oh, like you want to,
Come back to the family.
right.
The father.
Find your nurturing instincts.
Exactly.
Find your protective instincts towards your babies.
Exactly. And sometimes, once in a while, that might work.
Yeah.
But who knows what else is happening?
Well, do they have supervised visits?
No.
So
They get custody of the kids.
they get. Wait. Okay. I didn't quite understand that part. So you're telling me somebody comes out of prison. They've sometimes, because this isn't happening in every case,
No.
but some of these fathers who are coming back out of prison after serving their sentences,
Right.
Which we all, you should get a second chance. That's how I
Should.
feel. But you're telling me that they're getting unsupervised visits with kids after being incarcerated for felonies. They just walk out the prison and they have custody.
Oh, they don't walk out and get custody. They walk out and they get services from these father's rights programs.
Okay.
Which are, it was supposed to be, and when it was written in there, that it meant that the fathers got jobs and then they paid child support.
Which makes sense.
Which makes sense. But if you're a felon, it's hard to get a job.
Yeah.
So they're being advised, we believe, because nobody has infiltrated it. We need someone to go and infiltrate these places.
If you're available,
you're available, we have a number for you.
hit up Connie.
To find out whether or not they're being advised to go for custody and then make the mother pay them
Child support.
because the mothers don't have a felony record and they can get jobs. That's happening.
So you get to enslave your ex to go make your money so that you can take the child because you can't get work because you serve time.
Right. That's happening.
Okay, now see that to me, like, why don't y'all call the media and be like,
Well, yeah.
and they won't help you with that? What about sitting down with some of these kids to see how things are going? Because
We have, and they say, well, we're getting beat up.
and you can't call CPS.
And we call CPS, and they take notes.
And you call the cops.
And they cross-report with CPS, and then they both close the case because it's a family law case.
So you call the judge.
Can't call the judge.
So you call an attorney.
What can the attorney do? Mm-hmm. It's a catch-22 everywhere you turn.
Yeah.
Everywhere you turn. And the key is the judge. If the judges were good people, if they were properly trained on how this all goes, and if they weren't corrupt, they weren't in collusion with this ring of people who are making money off each other, off the parents,
Off the pain.
off the parents' pain, or the children's pain.
Right.
If things would go fine.
So the way to target this is the judges.
Well, we've tried a lot of that, and there's even one judge, Deanne Salcido, down in Southern California, who, she said when she first came in to be a judge, that had been her aspiration since she was a kid, to be a judge.
I'm sure. I mean, that's a rad job. If you have a calling for that and you want to make decent decisions and help your community, that's wonderful.
Top of the heap, right?
Yeah.
So, Deanne Salcido became a judge, got trained by her superiors, got trained by the people in the system that were supposed to train judges, baby judges.
Yeah.
And they all said, don't be real suspicious of abuse allegations during a custody case.
Okay.
Just be real suspicious of it. So she was. She had a case come before her. The mother's name was Joyce Murphy. Joyce's daughter had been sexually abused, was talking about being sexually abused. Judge Salcido, remembering her training,
Right. Oh, they
put
told
the
her to.
child with the father because it was clear from her training
Right.
that the mother was trying to get a leg up in the custody case.
Because women lie.
They lie.
We're
Children lie.
awful, yeah.
Yep.
We're women, our gender.
That's right. So, 6 years later, he started using the child as a lure and began raping her little friends. He got prosecuted for that, and Joyce Murphy got her child back.
Only after other
6
people were
years later.
victimized.
Right.
Yeah.
So that,
Because these pedophiles do go out there and groom younger children, right? Because their
And they-
kid gets too old.
and once they get custody, they can use the child as a lure.
Right. Take them to the park. Take them to
Part,
ice
invite
cream.
kids over for sleepovers.
Right.
There's
Have
a-
a special sleepover thing.
So going back to the felons getting custody,
Okay.
there's a man in Bakersfield named Nicholas Elizondo.
Okay.
He was convicted and went to prison, I don't know for how many years, maybe 4, maybe 6 years, for molesting his first daughter. He got out of prison. He ended up getting a second daughter, when she got to be the same age, he started abusing the child.
Yeah.
He got custody of the child, the second daughter, after 46 years in prison.
This guy molests the first daughter, goes to jail for it, which doesn't usually happen.
Miraculously, that.
Okay, so he goes to prison, he does get caught, and a good judge is on the bench and does the right thing, so praise God for that.
Yep.
And then this guy goes on to molest the second daughter.
And get custody of the second daughter.
And got custody.
Despite his being on
Despite the record of the,
being on Megan's list. He's not allowed to be around children.
Well, how did that judge allow that? Because you have a documentation. It's not just she said, she said. This guy's actually served time.
That was it. He got custody in Oklahoma. He moved to Bakersfield, and the mother tried to get custody back again in Bakersfield.
Right.
And she was turned down. So 2 states have endorsed a man on Megan's list having custody of a child.
That just doesn't seem...
8-year-old.
That doesn't seem legal.
Exactly.
What about these kids? Like, don't they have a hotline they can call to report this is what's happening? Can you come help me?
For example, the boy that called 911, the boy that our organization became funded for.
Yeah.
He called 911. They left him right with his father. Right with his father.
But what about this little girl? I mean, one would think her father has a documented record.
You'd think.
So when she calls the cops...
She's only 8 years old. Maybe she's 9 by now. She doesn't know to do that. And she's probably been so beaten down by this time that she's scared to.
Yeah.
She's probably scared to. So she's going to grow up, and she's either going to be the best student in her class and excel in everything, or she's going to be totally screwed up. Something is going to be very, very wrong inside of her. And she'll grow up, and that will feed the mental health profession for years.
If they choose to even look at it.
Well, they may not look at the abuse, because
Yeah.
they're not trained in violence and sex abuse at all.
Well, how are these people who aren't even trained in these issues able to help
They're not.
the judge?
They don't. They help the judge make a decision.
Well, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
You know, how is it if you have no actual training in something, you can come into a courtroom and say you're an expert? And the judge says, okay.
It's because he got a little certificate of 40 hours of training, which was supposed to be on child sex abuse. When we helped put the law through, it's supposed to be on child sex abuse.
Mm-hmm.
One of our colleagues went to a training from one of these people who used to be an alienation specialist and then became a custody evaluator, and found that the child sex abuse was about 20 minutes at the very end of the 40 hours of training. So the laws we put in are not being followed.
So wait a minute. How did you push for this to happen, and then it's just 20 minutes at the end? Who gets to decide what's covered?
Whoever is doing the training. They're approved by Judicial Council, and they're supposed to be training on the law, but there's nobody keeping the store. There's no oversight. They're supposed to be, but there's not.
So what you're telling me is we basically live in a third world nation where people don't have rights.
Or the Wild West.
Yeah, in the Wild West, you could just shoot somebody in the head for this kind of stuff.
Well, yeah. But that doesn't happen.
It was recourse. You could challenge somebody to a duel.
But here, now, instead, the father shoots the kid and shoots himself.
So what do we do about this?
Well, we're working on a federal resolution, which will instruct the states, if it's passed, and it's going to be hotly contested. If it passes, it will instruct the states to make child safety the first priority of any custody decision.
Wouldn't that make sense?
One would think.
Because then a mama can't say, this is happening, and a daddy can't say, he's mine. You know, like if you have somebody actually come in and that person is trained and knows what to look for and understands the gaslighting and the abuse and the things to look for.
And has the child's safety.
And doesn't get paid off.
As the first, yes.
Yeah.
See, the private people are the ones that are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Many of the public people that are doing this work are, some of them are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are terrible, but some of them are pretty good. But they get paid a regular salary, and unless somebody's slipping the money on the table, then they usually don't. They're not. they're not leaning toward the person who's got the most money.
Mm-hmm. And so that's
Private people
better.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a little bit more control.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're depressing me. So, okay. So, what's this federal statute that's being
Worked on?
entertained? Yes. What is that?
Well, it hasn't been resubmitted, but previously in September, it was submitted by a Texas judge named Judge Poe. He was a Congress member.
Okay.
But he's a judge also. And wonderful, wonderful man. Unfortunately, he became ill, and he wasn't able to carry it through. So now we're having to regroup.
They killed him. Is that what you're saying?
No,
They
no,
poisoned him. They sickened him. Is it conspiracy? What happened? Did he get scaleased? What happened?
He didn't get
Was he Seth Riched?
He didn't get Nancy Shaffer. He just got sick.
Poor
He
baby.
got cancer.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So who's taking up this bill?
Well, we haven't gotten it solved. It's not ready to be enrolled yet.
Taken to the next level?
Yeah.
But Poe is out the picture?
Well, hopefully
Pretty
he'll
much.
sign on as someone who's part of it. But I'm not. We're not supposed to say who's doing it.
Got it. Okay, cool. But there's hope.
Little ray of hope.
Yeah.
A little ray of hope.
Okay.
Yeah. Because this kind of resolution, 20, 30 years ago, when was it? 20, 30 years ago, was passed for domestic violence. It was a resolution that's doesn't have any teeth to it, but it said states aren't supposed to give custody to batterers.
Makes sense.
And across the country, the states passed laws in their own jurisdiction saying not supposed to give custody to batterers. And of course they do.
Oh yeah, I got a friend in the Midwest. Her ex-husband punched all of her teeth out of her head in front of the baby, and they still share custody.
They share custody. Well, that's not supposed to be happening, but it is.
It is. But if this federal resolution did move forward, it would be better. It'd be better because obviously
and it's it will bring attention because when we used to go to Congress and we try to tell this crazy story about kids are getting taken from safe parents and given to dangerous parents, and they'd look at us cross-eyed like we were crazy from a different planet.
Well, yeah, because who would think
no
that's
sense.
true? It doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Two things happened between when we first started about 10 years ago and now. One was Ted Pope put out the resolution in September last year, and now when we went in to Congress,
Because
everybody understood the issue.
a guy who's actually in the system
As
could
a judge,
help you express this problem and say, yes, this is happening. Some of my peers are not upright.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Not all my peers are evil, but we got some bad apples
We
up
got
in
some
here.
bad apples.
Okay.
So we cannot be more grateful to this man.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he is fabulous. And it made it so much easier to explain because we'd say, here it is.
Right.
Written down. The other thing is we went to one office. We were talking to the staff member, and she said, stop right now. You don't need to explain to me. My husband was placed with his battering father and punched him out when he was 17 and never saw him again. So I know just what you're talking about.
Aww.
So that made us all cry, and
Yeah.
But what's happening is these kids are growing up.
Right.
And they're becoming adults in our society, and some of them are going straight. Some of them are going real crooked. But the ones who are going straight testified to it.
Yeah.
And this
And you can't be ignored once you're 18.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Even though your mom maybe has been.
Yeah. When you turn 18, all these kids are holding their breath till they get to be 18.
Right.
We passed a wonderful bill in California that said at 14, well, it's the beginning of wonderful, at 14, if the child wants to talk directly to the judge instead of all these helper people, he or she is able to. They have to allow that. Now we're trying to reduce that age so that younger kids can talk directly to the judge, because if it's an honorable judge and they're getting misinformation.
Kids, yeah, I would think a lot of these judges don't know. Like they have to not know what's going on, because if you gave a judge definite documentation of this is what's up, how can that person in good conscience make an argument that anything else is happening?
Right. So it's true, and there are some crooked judges, and I don't know what we can do about them. We've tried to get rid of them, and it's very hard to do.
Well, the Civil War's coming. We'll take care of that.
Okay, good. Somebody has to do something.
Yeah.
But it's the helper people that are sort of being biased toward the highest bidder,
Right.
whoever has the money.
Or the
whatever. Or,
whoever presents their case better.
Yeah.
I'm sure some of these dads are able to cry, and a lot of people see fathers who aren't involved.
Yes.
So maybe they think, oh, this poor schmo is getting railroaded by this horrible bitch.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure that happens.
And
they don't know. They're just ignorant.
So when, there was an attorney in Sacramento who brought in a 17-year-old boy and said, I want you to talk directly to the judge. He brought the boy in, and the judge talked to him, and he said, oh my gosh, I've been wrong all this time.
Yeah.
Because you're not mentally retarded.
Right.
You are a perfectly well-spoken young man.
There's nothing wrong with your brain.
There's nothing wrong with your brain. He's been lying.
Right. So the judge had to come to Jesus.
He came to Jesus.
And tell me that he gave the son to the
right parent.
That's a good story, because sometimes you hear the opposite, where the kid is telling the judge what's happening, and the judge is like, that's not happening.
In Marin County, that's happened a number of times.
Yeah.
Kids have gone and said, I
Those
need
are the
a
fleas
restraining
people?
order. Yeah, that's the one
Okay.
with the fleas. They're not as blatant anymore, but I'm sure the same thing's going on. But two kids went, they said, we want a restraining order because our father's been beating us up on the weekends that we go to see him. So the judge gave custody to the father.
That makes no sense.
Not unless you're a bad guy.
Yeah.
And
You
these
must
were
be
women.
fucking your kids yourselves. I'm sorry, I was just let an F-bomb slip, and you're
You
such
did.
a wonderful lady.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
I
gosh, I
don't-
feel
I
so
don't
bad.
understand these words at all. I just don't
I know you
understand
use them when you're home, Connie Valentine, but,
I do.
I just feel, please forgive me. Sorry. That's horrible. Like, the judge has to be a batterer himself.
It was a woman. A woman judge.
Oh, she's a self-hater. Those are the worst. The women that protect the patriarchy, those are the worst kind of human beings.
Well, they have two of them in Marin County, and they are really entrenched. So that happened in that particular county. So we have these hotspot counties,
So these kids.
and these kids had to go live with the very person they were trying to get a restraining order against.
No, see, why don't the kids go to their teachers?
Well, they do. Teachers report to CPS. CPS reports to the cops. They both close the cases. It's a custody problem.
Ugh, it's a custody problem. It's not an
And the
American
judge-
citizen being raped or abused. It's not an American citizen having her children raped or abused. It's a custody issue.
Exactly. So my desire, what I would really like to see more than anything,
Mm-hmm.
is that the only way, if a child reports abuse to a mandated reporter, whoever, teacher,
Right.
CPS, whoever, immediately there's a restraining order put in place against the accused, just immediately, so that there could be an investigation.
You know that's not going to happen.
And then the only way that the restraining order is lifted is if the DA, CPS, law enforcement, a domestic violence advocate, and the child agree that the child will be safe in unsupervised contact. That would stop this nonsense.
Yeah.
Cold in its tracks.
Yeah, but
It
seems
would
like a
be-
lot to ask for these kids that nobody really cares about in the first place.
Except the protective parent.
Yeah.
Who loves them with all their heart.
And the community, I
And
would
we-
think, does not want to have this happen into their neighbors, because it's going to affect your kids too.
Yes. Because that child that's being
Yeah.
raped at home,
Is going to
It's gonna
school with your kid.
act out on one of your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your grandchild.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we're all in it together.
We are. This is not an isolated home problem,
Mm-hmm.
but it's happening in an awful lot of homes.
You brought a list of some stats that
Oh,
I know you said you wanted to share. Maybe this would be a good time to let us know some of the stuff that's going on in these homes, or what you're working toward, because I don't know what's on your list. I ain't wearing my glasses.
Okay, you don't have to read it. I will. Well, the person that started this was a woman named Geraldine Staley, a professor down in San Bernardino. She's a wonderful researcher. We put together a survey. We got 399 surveys back. 40% of them were from California. The rest of them, 60%, were from the rest of the country.
Okay.
So that's kind of how it breaks down.
So you got 40% Cali, 60% other.
All the rest of the states.
Okay.
39 states altogether.
39 states.
So it's pretty good. It's pretty
That's pretty.
comprehensive, you know?
Yeah, I would think so.
The most shocking thing is 80% of the moms, there were only women that answered it. So I'm going to use the mothers.
Okay. Sorry, dads, we ain't leaving you out on purpose here. Y'all just didn't send your shit back in.
Hey, it's up to the good dads to start reining in the bad ones.
Yeah, no, we do need some help from our brothers, I would think.
We do.
Yeah.
But anyway, 80% of the mothers had custody to start out with.
Okay.
You'd think things would be going fine.
Right.
During the visitation, something was going wrong. So those mothers who had primary custody went to the court and said, would you please help my child?
Okay.
After that, 67, 2/3 of them lost custody based on the evaluator.
Okay, so you're telling me, I'm not good at math. Okay.
Don't have to worry about it.
No,
based on the custody evaluator.
Okay, but that's okay. So one person. So Mama has custody.
Yep.
Mama is saying, Dylan's coming home, telling me this is happening, and Mama moves forward to protect Dylan.
Right.
And
as she must.
As she must. Oh, because you go to jail. If
you don't try to
if your child is being harmed and you do nothing about it because you're callous, you don't care, or you're scared, or maybe you have PTSD yourself and you can't get your head. You know what I'm saying? No judgments, but you legally do have the legal obligation to protect your kid.
Your
so
kid
if Mama
will be taken away from you if you
don't call. So Mama has to call. Mama wants to call.
Right.
Mama does call, and 2/3 of the time she will lose Dylan.
No, 2/3 of the time. Oh, what's worse than that? 2/3 of the time, she'll end up in a custody evaluation with the mental health person that we were talking about.
The person that's not really trained.
Right.
Okay.
2/3 of them are biased against the mother and say no, the mother should lose custody.
Why?
Who's paying them?
Well, what if they're not being paid?
They're all being paid
by someone.
By someone. And if they're being paid by the batterer, then they're likely to incline toward who they're being paid by. So,
okay,
what happens is, in the rest of the nation, 17% of the mothers ended up with primary custody. Started out, okay, you don't have to be good at math, is this?
Okay.
You start out, you got custody, most people have custody.
Right.
You end up, hardly anybody has custody.
Where do the kids go?
They go to the batterer or the molester. Here's the kicker. 98% of the fathers had an attorney, and the mother didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a crucial thing. In California, we've got a law that says you can't do that. You've got to even the playing field.
Yeah.
They don't do it. They don't pay attention to it.
But it's on the books.
It is. But if you don't appeal it, and if they don't have an attorney, they can't appeal it. And if they don't have a court transcript, which in California, we don't have court reporters automatically in every court.
Okay.
In family court. So there's no transcript of what happened.
So your kid's being harmed, you go in there to court, you're overwhelmed, you have no one to advocate on you or your child's behalf, so you're not taking notes.
You're not taking notes.
Right.
Even if you did, they'd say they're biased. But there's nobody else taking notes. There's no
there's
court
no
reporter.
written record. There's no witness to the testimony given because there's no way to even refute what didn't get deposed.
Exactly.
Whoa!
Yes. Unless you're rich enough to get an attorney who says, "Hey, we gotta buy a court reporter to come here. We gotta get a private
right
for thousands of dollars."
Right. So you gotta pay for that.
Pay for that.
And then you might be paying child support.
Well, not yet.
Okay.
Because
right now you've got the custody.
You've got custody.
All right.
But the batterer.
But if he's got the kids, he ain't paying you the custody.
Right.
Oh, wow.
It's
okay.
A perfect flip.
Wow.
Yep. So, what happens is across the country, about 75%, 3/4 of the mothers lost custody. In California, it's 85%. It's worse here.
Why is it worse here?
I wish I knew.
That seems so foreign to me because this is progressive state, blue state, Wow.
Apparently California does not care about their children as much as the rest of the nation.
That's mind-blowing to me.
Yeah. So that was okay. And the other thing is again, 2/3 of these kids, they kept reporting the abuse even while in the custody of their father.
Okay, so these kids are trying to get help.
They're still trying to get help.
Right.
And they're still not believed. And anytime the mother reports, she loses her visitation. And some of them are cut off completely.
So there's moms out there trying to advocate for their children who are already calling, trying to advocate on their own behalf, are now restricted from even seeing one another on visit.
Yes. Even if it's and a lot of them got put on supervised visits. The mothers on average spent $100,000 on their litigation.
Okay.
And that ranges between $3,000 and $2 million
Okay.
to lose their child.
So these protective parents are literally going from $100,000 in sums up to $2 million to still not have their child safe and protected.
Right. Kids are still continuing to report abuse. They're continuing to be said that they were little liars.
The kids are lying, even though they keep calling. Even though they can...
Because it was established by the evaluator that there was no substance to this allegation.
Well, these evaluators seem to be another vulnerability. It seems to me, plain devil's advocate, that the evaluators and the judges are two places where these kids could get help.
Yes.
Right.
Those are the two key people. Plus, then, the attorney for the child would be a key person. But we call that the kiss of death.
Why?
Because they almost always lean toward the person paying them. Child's attorney.
The child's attorney. What do you call them?
In California, we call them attorney for the minor.
Attorney for the minor?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the attorney for the minor, one would think, would look over these documents, and even if they are being paid by an abusive parent, how can one look at actual irrefutable evidence and still side with somebody abusive?
They do.
But don't they have to take oaths to advocate for the child?
They're attorneys.
Well, I get it. They're attorneys, but that's what I'm saying. They are. I mean, it's like our cops. Our cops, in theory, are held to higher standards than a private citizen who shoots another unarmed citizen because they were scared. You know, and that does happen. Like, you know, one would think these lawyers have taken oaths to protect these children. So not only are you encouraging abuse and exploitation, but you're doing it at the detriment of your ability to practice law, right? Because couldn't you get sanctioned?
Yes, many of them have been. But it still doesn't stop the fact that the child's with the abuser.
Wow.
Even the bar has sanctioned them. Some of them have lost their license.
Yeah.
We've started calling this judicial trafficking because it's so common that the children are put with their abusers who've reported sexual abuse. And that one of the young women who she's now an adult, she told me that her attorney for the minor came into her bedroom and sat down close on the bed and put his arm around her.
You've got to be kidding me.
I wish I were.
Did that come out in court?
Yeah.
And what happened?
But they said she was lying.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So really what we need to do is change the culture of the whole country to believe children when they report abuse.
Right.
Because the research shows, particularly for sexual abuse, that only 2 to 6% of the kids are making it up. So the vast majority
are telling the truth.
Whereas in the family court, it's the mere opposite. They disbelieve the vast majority, even though the research shows that they're telling the truth.
So one would think if these judges knew that, like if they had the latest research given to them by independent parties who are not moms and dads necessarily going through anything such as these situations, one would think the judge would have a greater understanding.
One would think.
Of stats.
One would think. Another case, I seem to be full of stories about cases. One of the attorneys litigated a case perfectly with all the stats. The judge had everything.
Mm-hmm.
The final conclusion of the judge was the child is reported far too many times to be actually telling the truth.
Oh my gosh.
So it's whatever their twisted minds want to believe.
And it's that one person who gets to make the decision.
Yeah.
Just the family court judge.
Only in Texas are there jury trials, which we think would be a really good idea to have a jury trial.
Well, you know, you think that, and then you watch Bill Cosby walk away free and his wife make up excuses.
Oh, you're right.
You know.
Well, I don't know except to say that if a child reports abuse, that's it. If they want to be protected, that's it.
Hey, look, I'm all for it. I agree with you. I'd rather have 12 of my citizens in there listening to evidence instead of one person listening to somebody they trust who could be completely dishonest about the situation.
Right.
Yeah. And then you have the whole women are stupid and crazy and
Why?
yeah. So you got that going in because there is a lot of prejudice towards us Chiquitas. What is next, Connie Valentine?
For our organization or for the movement?
All of it, girl.
We want the resolution passed in the federal government, and then we want to change the laws in California so that child safety is the first and highest priority of any custody decision.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Hopefully we can make some changes. And I would encourage anybody listening, please get involved, especially if you're in California, because we are here in California with Connie Valentine, California Protective Parents. And you can email
CPPA001 at AOL.com.
That's California Protective Parents Association. Get involved.
It would be wonderful if they joined us and did court watch.
Yeah.
That would be the number one best thing that they could possibly do.
Yeah, we need bodies in these courtrooms,
Yes.
seeing what's happening and helping make changes. You know, we had a civil rights movement. Maybe it's time for a civil rights movement for the kids, you know? Well, thank you for coming on my podcast and depressing the shit out of me, Connie Valentine. I'll go home and hit my bong and say some bigger prayers tonight. And I'm very, very thankful for you. And I'm very appreciative for what you're doing. And I think a lot of us don't have an awareness that this is so pervasive, because how would you think it's happening? It doesn't make any damn sense. It doesn't make any sense. And I want to thank you for coming on and talking about this.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Connie Valentine, for sharing some very discouraging and absurd facts. Thanks for tuning in, y'all. Please come to me on my website and join me. Sign up for my newsletter, and you will get a free audio download from my last album. Shout out to Ari. You are the best. I can't wait to give you an extra special hug. Mwah.